And if you're able to earn something with the violin, all I ask is that you maybe take a little bit of it and bring it to me and my sisters. We're starving. And Fievel said, yes, I'd be happy to do that. He opened the case and realized this instrument was an amati, extraordinarily valuable instrument, in the same family as the Guarneri and Stradivarius instrument. And he was almost afraid to play, but he took the instrument and started playing it. And then his landlord overheard him playing and saying, oh, I didn't know you had a violin that you could play. I have this party I'm putting together. Maybe you can provide music for it. Do you know Ukrainian folk songs? Oh, yes, of course I know Ukrainian folk songs. And so he takes the violin to this party, and he doesn't know the tunes, but it's that old joke, if you hum a few bars, maybe I can fake it. He was apparently quite adept at playing by ear, so he picked up the songs very quickly. And these parties were 3 or 4 day affairs, nonstop. And he'd play the whole time, but the agreement was whatever food and firewood and water were left over at the end of the party, he could take as much with it as he could carry. At one point, the amati was confiscated. But Fievel had built up a reputation playing at parties for Romanian officers and Ukrainian farmers. And there's a Ukrainian farmer who was insistent that Fievel play at his daughter's wedding. And so he helped Fievel purchase a new violin. And by playing that violin in exchange for food, water, and firewood, Fievel was able to not only save his own life, but the lives of those 16 family members and friends that he lived with in the ghetto. After the war, Fievel immigrated to Palestine with his family, and he brought with him his instrument, which he called simply Friend. And as his daughter Helen, who was 6 months old when their family was taken on a death march, as she was growing up, he would take out the instrument, his Friend, and he would play it for her and tell her the stories of this friend who had saved his life and her mother's life and their friends' lives. As Fievel grew older, he developed arthritis that made it difficult for him to play Friend. And by the time he was about to turn 90, it had been several years since he had played Friend. And Helen went and visited him in his home and said, the 90th birthday is coming up, Dad. This is a big one. What would you like? Let's do something really special. And Fievel said, you know what? What would be the most special for me is if I could play Friend again. I know he's not in very good shape. Maybe you could get him repaired and bring him back into playable shape. Helen, his daughter, is not a musician. She had a career in the IDF. And so she asked around, I have this violin that needs to get repaired. Where should I take it? And as Israel, there's one workshop that everybody tells you got to go to if you want the quality work done in your instrument. That's the Weinstein workshop. So she took it to the Weinsteins, but she didn't tell them the story behind it. She just said, this is my father's violin. I'd like to get it repaired. Okay, leave it on the counter here, and we'll take a look at it when we can, and we'll get back to you. And Avshi's father, Amnon, called her that evening and said, look, I've had a chance to look at this violin. I'll be honest, this violin was never a great instrument. It was a cheap instrument from the beginning, and it's just in such bad shape. I'm going to take it apart and do all kinds of repairs. Basically, the violin is totaled. It's what it would cost to repair it is less than the value of the instrument. Why don't you just buy a new instrument? It's going to be better. So she said, okay. She goes back to Fievel and says, Dad, I got a great idea. I'm going to buy you a new violin. And Fievel just starts crying. He says, no, you don't understand. This is not about playing the violin again. It's about playing my violin again, my friend. Surely there's something you can do. Helen realized her mistake. She went back to the Weinsteins. Now she told them the story. And that was a game changer for them as well. Whole new ball game. No problem. We're going to fix this instrument up better than new, no charge. I never met Fievel. He passed away before I began my research on the Violins of Hope. But Helen had the foresight to bring her camera with her when she reunited her father with his friend on his 90th birthday. And I don't think I ever fully understood the expression grinning from ear to ear. until I saw this picture of this 9-year-old man just absolutely beaming. I mean, it feels like the corner of his mouth actually touches his ears at this reunification. Fievel, he played it a little bit, but his arthritis made it very difficult for him to play. But nevertheless, from his 90th birthday until the day he passed away, every day at least once, he'd take out his friend and he'd cradle his friend in his arms and shed these tears of gratitude for this friend that had saved his life and his family's life during the Holocaust. We have friend over here.
Right next.
Oh, this is?
Yes.
And so here is that friend. After Fievel passed away, Helen brought it back to the Weinstein and asked that it be included in the Violins of Hope project. That's the heart of this project, again, is not just the restoration, but that they're played again, but then they're alive again to tell these stories. As I tell my students, the Holocaust is not a single story of 6 million deaths. It's 6 million different stories, many of which we'll never know. But we get to know a few of them through these Violins of Hope. And these stories, at least I hope, help to humanize what is otherwise an incomprehensible tragedy. The human brain simply can't comprehend 6 million deaths, but we can comprehend individual stories. And that's why I think the writings of figures like Primo Levi and Elie Wiesel and Anne Frank are so important, because they help humanize an otherwise unimaginable tragedy. And I hope, in some small part, that's the role these Violins of Hope play as well in their stories.
Thank you very much, Jay. Anybody has any questions? And I think Jay mentioned